Good afternoon, traders. Hope you guys are having a great weekend so far. So in today's video, I'm going to be doing a review of all the stocks I'm watching, including the ones that are still developing. Then I'll go into the ones I'm currently holding and currently looking to get into. So without further ado, please like, subscribe, comment if you guys appreciate this content, but let's get into it. So I've been watching this trade for a while. It starts to develop, Pepsi. I have two trends I'm watching. One is a little bit more of a long-term trend. You can see I think that was from 2020, was it? Let me see. So that's from 2009 to now. It's been respecting this trend in general over the long term. I'm also watching this trend. I didn't notice this trade until right around here on the November candle. And I'm not looking to rush to trade or anything because I believe that it's going to make another dip down, maybe create a double bottom on the intermediate trend. So I'm waiting for that to develop. You can see on the weekly that last time we hit it, we had decent volume, but I'm wondering, what I'm trying to figure out is if the volume was from big buyers entering or was it from earnings coming up? That's the big question. I think with earnings coming up in February, that is. Yeah, that's in February. I think that we're going to get another push down. We keep on rejecting the 100 and the 50 EMA. So once we make a push back down to something like, I don't know, 162 to 161, I'll definitely consider getting back. I'll consider getting into Pepsi, but like always, you got to be patient and just wait for the setups to come along. So John Deere is another one I've been watching. If we go to the weekly, you can see we've been creating a nice base. 450 on the upside would be the upside breakout, and then 283.81 would be the downside breakout. So you could call that 284 basically. You can see on the monthly. Let me switch to that. On the monthly, we've had a nice, decent rally over the last about year and a half. We went to some consolidation. So we've been consolidating for the, let's see, 3 years, going into the fourth year of consolidation. So I'll be looking for a breakout on John Deere. Now, if it goes to the upside, I think the move will be huge. I'm looking for a pullback right to the 50 EMA. I might consider getting in there. It depends on how big of a volume that we got, but that's another setup I'm watching. I was debating between Eli Lilly and Microsoft. I came to the conclusion that Microsoft was the better setup in my opinion. The risk was definitely not as high. So I ended up choosing Microsoft instead of Eli Lilly. But you can see we broke out recently. Decent volume, not the heaviest, but it's still pretty good. We broke out of this 619 area. On the weekly, we're able to hold it. Very strong. Close above this range. So I definitely look for more upside. Personally, I wouldn't be shocked if this pushes 700-800, maybe even 1,000 share by the end of 2024. But maybe look for a retest, considering that we also have the government shutdown that might happen. So you might get some volatility this week into next week. So then another one I've been watching is AJR. Again, a nice trend. As you can see, it keeps on coming to this trend line and bouncing right back up. It came down to the 50 EMA and it ended up bouncing up. Again, not a bad trade at all. If you got in at the 50 EMA on AJG. But what I was ideally looking for is a move back down to the trend line. We didn't get that, so I didn't enter. Again, it's all about discipline and consistency. It's not the best setup, but it is what it is. So I would definitely look at them. I might get interested above 254 if it breaks all-time highs. That might be a good setup to watch. Meta, I was looking to get into Meta, but I feel like on the weekly, if I entered on this candle, that was a bit overdone, and the risk would have been too large because I normally put my stop loss at the beginning of the candle. So my stop would have been roughly about 6%, which is a little too big for my risk tolerance. I more like to stick with 5% risk. I find that to be the nice number because it just takes one winning trade for me to make up like 3 losing trades, so it works out great. Nvidia, I end up, as you guys, I told you guys in the previous videos, I've been in Nvidia for about, I don't know, 3-4 days. I bought at 520. It moved up to 1-to-1 risk to reward, so I put my stop to break even. I added another part of the position, so I have the risk profile of the same 13% position, but now I have a 33% position. So I'm keeping my risk the same while increasing the position, so increasing the profit potential. So I'm looking for NVIDIA to really push 553. We might get a pullback to 520, 525, in which case we do, I'll be exiting out of there. I'll take a small loss on it. It is what it is, but either way, great trade. I'll look for a push to 505 if it really starts to pull back, and I might enter at 505.48 or retest of the all-time high. That wouldn't be a bad setup either. Caterpillar, what I'm watching on there, I'm not really too interested in them, to be honest. Just a sloppy setup. I tried to take a trade right here. I got in, what week was that? 12.26. I got into Caterpillar. I ended up selling it right here because it broke. The whole reason why I was in it because it broke all-time highs. So I'm out of Caterpillar. I'm not even watching them too much. AMD is not half bad. We're starting to consolidate between these levels, so maybe on the breakout of 152 or 133, 130, I might consider them. Or a push back down to the 50 EMA might not be bad. If you guys got in here, great for you. It just wasn't the type of setup I was watching, just because the volume just wasn't there, in my opinion. Google, I was really considering Google at the end of last week. It was between Google, Microsoft, and Eli Lilly. And once again, I chose Microsoft. I just felt like Microsoft had the best setup. There seems to be a lot of weakness on Google, and the volume's just not all the way there. So that's not half bad. JP Morgan, I did take a position on them at one point. I entered right around here. I believe I entered at 160, and I took it for about 167, I believe I sold it at. I could be wrong. In hindsight, I should have held it. To be honest, but now that I have new rules in order for me to let the winning trades run, so that'll be something to look forward to. Now that we broke down this 170, I'd look for a push back down to the 50 EMA or back down to 159.38 to retest all-time highs of the previous few weeks. Starbucks, we are starting to break out the symmetrical triangle pattern. If we go to the weekly, it's a little bit more clear. You see here that we broke it, retest, push on decent volume too. You have earnings, so if Starbucks miss earnings, I believe that Starbucks will get a massive push down to at least 75, in my opinion. I'm not looking to short it just because it's outside of my trading strategy, but I'm just saying if you do short it, you probably will make out decent just because you're below all the EMAs on the weekly, so the probabilities are definitely in your favor for shorting Starbucks, Apple. Apple's not doing too bad, starting to recover. I just don't like how it's rejecting around the 187.45 level. If we can push above there, get a decent close above it with heavy volume, I might consider a position on Apple. I'm not really looking to push it too hard on positions. I'm basically fully invested at this point on most of my accounts. So once again, I'm not really looking for any crazy setups. On Microsoft, like I've been saying, I like how we pushed out of here. We got some decent volume on the break of the all-time high. This green line is going to be where I set my stop to break even and where I'm going to be doubling the position if it does go to there, and then I'll move my stop loss up to break even. Boeing is just getting killed. I'm sure you guys heard Alaska Airlines and all that stuff. I'm staying away from Boeing personally. I wouldn't touch it with a 12-foot pole. Let's see. We got Royal Caribbean. What I'm watching on them is I'm watching if we can get above 135.10. As you see here, we keep on rejecting it. If we can get above 135.10, I would not be shocked if we push to 140, 150, and 160. But I'm looking for a push back down to 110, in my opinion, to test the all-time high again. I wouldn't be shocked if that ends up happening. So definitely watch 110 on RCL. DraftKings was another trade that I was looking at. If we could get above 39.35, then I would be interested. It looks like it's back testing the all-time high once again. So I wouldn't be surprised if DraftKings does one of two things. We push to not all-time highs, I should say, but we push out to the breakout zone, and we reject it again, get a double top formation, or we push up, in which case if we can push, I would say if we can get a weekly close above 42 with decent volume, I'll definitely consider getting into DraftKings. It's not a bad setup, but it still needs more time. AMPH, I'm staying clear of. I mean, you could maybe take a trade off the 50 EMA, but personally, I'm looking forward to make a close above 62.85 in order for me to get in. But it's doing a double top pattern right now. In order to confirm the double top, you would have to break down 44. So Datadog is another one I was looking at. Not really interested in them just because it's doing a lot of false breakouts. So I really am not really looking at that too much. Deck is another one I've been looking at lately. If we can push above 723 a share and break all-time highs, I mean, even right now, it wouldn't be a bad setup. It's just that the weekly didn't have any decent volume, in my opinion. So if you guys took it, not a bad setup at all. I believe that it will definitely push higher next week and the weeks after, but just not personally the type of setup that I'm looking at. Now Technologies, I believe is what it's called, ServiceNow, not a bad trade. Personally, I didn't take it just because I believe Microsoft has a lot more potential for some upside. But it's definitely a setup. Definitely looking at. I would say if you're gonna get into this trade, maybe put a stop at 685, or if you're trading how I trade, I would have put it at 692.76. Keep the stop nice and tight, and then so I wouldn't be shocked if we end up pushing 750, 775 the next coming weeks on now. And then we got ST&E. I'm not really interested in them anymore, to be honest. I'm still watching them just in case something comes about. But since we're below the 200 EMA and SMA, I'm really not watching them. GTLB. So this is one of the other setups I've been looking at. If we can push above 69, it might have potential. But until then, I'm staying away from this just because I believe there's a lot higher quality setups elsewhere at the moment. Braze, I meant to say, is another one I've been looking at. So even though this is my breakout zone, what I'm ideally looking for is to push above the 200 EMA. If we can get a weekly close above 60, you can definitely trend right this as long as it stays above the 50 EMA and the 50 crosses the 100 and the 200. You definitely have potential for massive upside on Braze. So that's just something to look at. CRM is another one that I'm in CRM right now. I got in it on Thursday, I believe. I got in, let's see, what was Thursday? Was that the 11th? Yeah, so I got in that Thursday on CRM. It's very nice volume on that candle there. I believe that big buyers are stepping up, but we did get a weak close on Friday. But overall, on the weekly candle, we're looking decent. We close above the range of this double bottom plus a base setup. And then we also close above the range of the last previous resistance. So I believe you could push to 284. That's where I have my break even set and where I'm going to be doubling my position. I believe you can push 300, 320 pretty soon on CRM. I think that this is very high quality. It's getting a bit extended on the weekly. On the daily, it's a little extended, but it's nothing terrible. PDD was another one I was looking to get into. I ended up not taking it just because it's still rejecting and still basing. It's still extended, but if we can get a close above 150, definitely have potential to push to 212, in my opinion. TDW, I did get in at one point. I entered this trade. Where did I enter this one at? This was one of my losses. I entered in right here. It ended up, I did it on the break of 73.55. We had some decent volume, not the highest, but decent enough. And then we rejected it, so I ended up taking, how much was that? About $3 per share loss. Nothing incredibly bad, because I start off with small positions to begin with, and then scale in as it starts to work. URI is another one I'm looking at. So if you go to the weekly, the trend is clear that it's going upward. You have the long-term trend, slight intermediate trend. I'll draw that in for you guys. So you got an intermediate trend right here that I would look at. So if we could get a push back down to there, I would expect us to bounce at 492. But if we break 585, then I would definitely consider URI. W-Day is another one I've been looking at. We got a breakout on W-Day. Volume's decent. I just believe Microsoft had more upside potential than W-Day, in my opinion. But it's not a bad setup either. I think that you could easily push 308 on W-Day, in my opinion. Snow is another one that I know somebody in the comment section recommended me to look over. So Snow is definitely showing potential. That's all I'll say. If we can get above 200, that's above this range that we've been consolidating, plus it's above the 200 EMA, Snow definitely has some big potential, I think, to 260 in my opinion, at least. I think that it would definitely push very high, especially if they can turn more positive sales and decrease debt just by a little bit. Spotify was what I was looking at. I was looking for the 200 SMA bounce. We got it, just not the highest quality step in my opinion, so I'm staying away from that. Dash is another decent one above the 200 EMA, and I'll be interested because that'll definitely give me confirmation that the trend's up. So far, we got a nice uptrend coming about, but I'm not being fooled yet. Melly was another one that I've been looking at. So they push above this range I've been looking at. Volume was decent. It's just not the type of setup I'm looking for. Plus, the shares are a little pricey, which I usually never say, but once they get up to a certain point, you gotta really just be careful, especially when you're trading smaller accounts. IWM, I got into a trade right here. Ended up getting out of it when it broke on the daily of 198.93, so I'm not involved in that anymore. I've been watching WAB. I like how it's in a constant uptrend. We just broke all-time highs on decent volume. They make rail cars and stuff down the lines of that, but I'm not really interested in WAB anymore, at least for now. I think over the long term, I'll definitely get into them at some point, but I just need to see some more. I just need to wait until it's a little bit more higher probability. I just believe it's a bit extended at the moment. GS is another one I'm looking at. Goldman Sachs, if we can push above 389.16, I believe you have potential to hit 426. But spacing right now, decent volume. We got earnings. Earnings, I think, could be your catalyst up or down. If we get a push down, I'd watch a 50 EMA on that. Celsius, we got a breakout on Celsius, but only slightly. I try to avoid Celsius just due to the fact that it chops around a lot. So just keep that in mind. It's not the type of setup I'm looking for. Frog is another one I'm looking at. Let me just figure out why I was looking at it. This is why. Same thing. If we get above the 200 EMA, then I'll definitely be interested in Frog. I just have to wait for the decent volume. Earnings probably will be the catalyst on that one. Let me see. I know there's one that CP, that's what it was, Canadian Pacific. So Canadian Pacific is not looking terrible either. If we get a push above 83 a share, then you definitely have a nice breakout of this range. You can see that price action consistently supported this area. So I'd definitely keep an eye on CP. Walmart was another setup that I was watching. Not really what I'm looking for. You got a sloppy head and shoulders possibly forming up. It's hard to say yet, but I'll just be careful on Walmart. But, it's a great stock. I'll say that much. Let me see. I'll just make this quick for you guys. I know there's a couple that I want to go over specifically. Let's see. The last one I wanted to go over was ANET. I do have a position in them. We push all-time highs. We got a nice strong weekly close on high volume. Earnings, I don't think are coming up for a while. So I have a little bit more. I have about a month in order for this to make a potential move upward. So that's at least what I'm watching there. And then Netflix is another one that I'm interested in. If we can push above 495 on Netflix, I'll definitely be interested in them. But at least those are the main setups I'm watching for this week. But I hope you guys got some decent, took something decent from this video. Anyways, have a good one, traders.